Hey guys, what's going on? Jeb here, and in today's video, Bitcoin has put in a bounce at the key level of around $7,675. We filled the CME futures gap, and Bitcoin now finds itself in prime territory to restart the uptrend now that the Bitcoin bulls have had their break and the bears have had their time. In this video, we'll be discussing all relevant technical factors going into this correction, this bounce, and the potential of Bitcoin having a major bullish breakout in the next 3 to 7 days as Bitcoin attempts to get above the key level of around $8,500. And also, guys, at the end of this video, we're going to be doing the What's the Trade segment, where I'm going to be showing you a short-term and a long-term trade so that you guys can be set up for the maximum risk-to-reward ratio, and hopefully you'll be in a position to make the most profit. And guys, there is no sponsor for today's video, so instead I'm going to humbly ask you guys to hit that like and subscribe button if you do enjoy today's video. But without much further ado, guys, let's go ahead and dive right on into it. Okay, guys, well, we're going to go ahead and dive on into it, but I just noticed that I'm still wearing my headphones, so let's fix that. Perfect. Okay, now we can go ahead and start. All right, guys, well, there's one thing that I want to make crystal clear here from the beginning of the video, and that is this. This correction that we've seen in Bitcoin over the last 3 to 4 days is very healthy, and in fact, we expected this correction to happen. As you guys know, Bitcoin's been in a rally here for several days, and when Bitcoin goes into a rally for several days, guess what? It needs time to cool off. A lot of people are getting really worried about this correction when they really just don't need to be, guys. This is perfectly healthy, and guys, look, I realize it looks a little bit like a head and shoulders pattern. We're going to discuss all of that here in today's video, but the first thing I want to start off this video with is making sure that you guys aren't too concerned about this, because for right now anyway, this does look healthy, and we did expect this to happen. Anyway, guys, like I said at the beginning of today's video, Bitcoin did go ahead and fill the CME futures gap, so let's go ahead and show you that. As you can see right over here, we did have this gap in between around $7,675 and about $7,720. But interestingly enough, I noticed this during the morning live stream earlier, we also had this candle right here with this wick, which means the gap actually started around $7,685 or so. What that means is that our gap was actually very small. It was only about $40 tall. But if you look here, this wick that we placed around 5 a.m. this morning Eastern Standard Time, that pretty much came down and perfectly filled this gap. There might be about $2 or $3 worth of gap left, but as far as I'm concerned, this gap is filled, and I am happy. If you guys will remember a couple videos ago, I was talking about how Bitcoin was probably going to go fill the gap. Then we might try and establish a new uptrend. So that is looking like what's going to happen now. And honestly, guys, for the time being anyway, this is looking like a pretty strong bounce, except for one thing, which I'll mention here in a second. We have 3 white soldiers right here. Those are 3 very bullish looking candlesticks. They do have some lower wicks down here, not very many higher wicks. I understand that this could look a little bit better. And also, one thing I want to mention is that we have a little bit of a shooting star right here. I want to see how this hourly candlestick develops, and that hourly candlestick will be well and truly closed by the time this video goes out. So go and check your own charts. But at the moment anyway, this is looking relatively healthy, because check this out. It took 14 hours for Bitcoin to pull back this far, and it took 4 hours for Bitcoin to rally back up to that. That is a clear sign of bullish strength compared to bearish strength. Bitcoin was already in an uptrend and needed a correction. There's nothing really to be worried about here at the moment anyway. We'll see what happens. And guys, one thing I want to show you also is out on the daily chart, this little correction that we've seen Bitcoin put in is actually very healthy for a multitude of reasons. One, it's pulling the MACD line closer to the signal line, which you might think that's a bad thing. We're having bearish convergence. Why would that be a good thing? Why would that be so good for Bitcoin? Well, it's because when the MACD line and the signal line get too far apart, then it's very easy for them to crash right back into each other and just collapse on each other. But if they're a little close to each other and they're just gradually trending upwards, it tends to be a little bit more sustainable. Also, on the RSI is having a little bit of a reset. We were getting into overbought territory, and now the RSI has corrected down to around 56 to 58, which is a much healthier territory, well and truly in the bullish territory, but not too far into overbought, which is exactly the prime territory that we need to be in to see Bitcoin have a new breakout. Because if Bitcoin is already overbought on the RSI, it's going to be very hard for it to have a breakout. If Bitcoin's already trading at like 75 on the RSI, where's the room for the breakout? I mean, seriously, guys, that's what happened back in 2017. People were expecting Bitcoin to continue running past 20K, but the RSI was already sitting at 94. And one more thing I want to mention before we get into some more of the more complicated analysis is the weekly candlestick, guys. It's Friday, my dudes, and Bitcoin is about to close a weekly candlestick, which is very green. Now, don't get me wrong, we have a long upper wick right here, but the fact that Bitcoin has such a green candlestick is reassuring. At the end of the day, guys, there's some more things I want to talk about, but Bitcoin is still looking bullish. Bitcoin looks okay. We're having a healthy correction. At the time being, Bitcoin is setting a higher low and also a higher high. There really just isn't much to be worried about just yet. And guys, this is something I was hoping would develop during this video so I could show you. I was hoping that we would have a bullish engulfing candlestick develop right now, and that's what it's looking like. Now, at the time of recording this, it is 9:20 912, so this candlestick is very young. Go check your charts. But if this does develop into a bullish engulfing candlestick, then this little rally that we put in this morning is more than likely going to continue. This candlestick that's going to close in the next 48 minutes is going to determine a lot of that. If it does close bullish, then a lot of the trades that I'm about to talk about that are bullish are ones that you'd want to look at for sure. One other thing that's interesting that I wanted to show you guys was out on the daily chart, and it's actually the 100 daily simple moving average. As you guys can see, it's this gray line right here, and it's a level that Bitcoin has gotten resistance at several times. Let's go ahead and turn these moving averages off, and you'll see that the last time we were up here, we got above it briefly, but we actually started testing resistance on it here too. Bitcoin was not able to get above it and stay above it, which is why today is actually a very important decision point. This is where it all kind of comes to a head, guys. This is what I've been talking about these decision points. A lot of times you're having like decision point lead up to another one, to another one, to another one. They're dominoes, but at the same time, everyone's important because if a domino doesn't fall in the sequence, the rest of them aren't going to get falling either. Today is a pretty important day because Bitcoin has put in this bottom, and I want to see Bitcoin continue trending to the upside, because if it doesn't, then Bitcoin is not out of the woods yet, guys. The new bull market has not started. It has not been confirmed. So if Bitcoin is able to get above that 100 daily simple moving average, if Bitcoin is able to get above some levels that we'll talk about here in a second, around 8,500, then I'm going to feel a lot more confident on Bitcoin. It's going to take a little while for Bitcoin to do that, though. So the thing I want to see happen is for Bitcoin to close that bullish engulfing candlestick, like I said a second ago, and for Bitcoin to close a candlestick on the daily chart, close the candlestick, not a wick, the candlestick body, above this 100 daily simple moving average, because that's not something that we did back over here. We rejected off of it on a candlestick right here, and then it was downhill from there. As you can see, rejected on a candlestick and started to fall. I don't want to see the same thing happen today, because we would be just repeating history again, and frankly, guys, the history following that move was not very pleasant. One more thing before we dive into the What's the Trade segment is gut feeling, otherwise known as experience, intuition, whatever you want to call it. It's something that we all have. It's a feeling in your gut, just like this feels right, this doesn't feel right. A lot of times you just know, as Taylor would say about certain things. And sometimes you just have a feeling that something is going on, and it's hard to explain what it is, but what it is, it's your instinct. And your instinct is there for a reason. It's built by your experience, and you don't even know it's there, but every time you make a trade, you learn something about the market, and you can't even consciously understand it, but it's important to pay attention to. And that's not the same as emotional trading, guys. A lot of people get that construed. It's called your experience. It's one of the most important things in technical analysis. And I want to tell you what my gut and my intuition is telling me right now. I'm getting a feeling that we need to be very careful here, and that Bitcoin needs to continue to rally here, and Bitcoin needs to take very good advantage of this opportunity that is presented in front of it, or we're probably going to regret it. Bitcoin, I don't feel like has a lot of chances right now. I feel like the window is closing a little bit, and that Bitcoin needs to put in this uptrend. It needs to bounce here today, and it needs to continue to rally, and it needs to break some levels of resistance in the next 7 days, really in the next about 3 days, or things might get bad, guys. Bitcoin is in a very young uptrend, and I want to see it grow and continue to develop, but I really don't think our window of opportunity is very large. I don't think we can just kind of trade sideways right where we are for another month without actually falling to the downside. It's important that we get some bullish pressure moving right now while we have the opportunity, and we don't miss this opportunity. And it's funny that I say that, because while I have my face cam up here, if we look at the daily chart, then we're actually seeing Bitcoin is moving, and this candlestick that I was telling you I wanted it to develop into a bullish engulfing candlestick, well, guys, that's exactly what's happening. That's what I thought was going to happen, but I told you it's important for that to take place. Again, at the time of recording this video, there's still 44 minutes before that candlestick that we're looking at closes. Go check your own charts, but it looks like it's going to close bullish. If it does, that's going to be very good for Bitcoin. So with that all said, let's move into the What's the Trade segment. First of all, you guys unfortunately aren't going to catch this signal in time, but if Bitcoin does break above this 100 moving average, as we saw it did over here, that kind of kicked off an uptrend. This would potentially be a buy position for the first trade that I'm talking about here, which is our shorter term long position. There's 2 trades I'm going to show you. This is the first of them. A trade entry somewhere just below $8,000, maybe even just a little bit above $8,000 if you want to skip some of that risk, all the way up to our downtrend up here around $8,300 to $8,400. That's my first trade. That's about a 4% gain. And guys, if you're using like 25x leverage or something, maybe even 10x leverage, that's not an insignificant amount of money that you can make. That's not an insignificant return. There is a trade to be made there, because even though my gut is telling me, like, Jeb, that Bitcoin needs to put some moves in here. Bitcoin, it needs to make some progress here. Bitcoin, it needs to make sure that it's not losing the momentum that it has already built, because because the bears will come back and take it back if we don't make the most of this situation. Even though my gut is telling me that, I do feel like, with that said, Bitcoin has a very good chance of moving up here to $8,400. And since it does, that means that there's a trade to be made. I don't know that I'll be able to make that trade today because I'm busy, but if I were to make it, then I will go ahead and post it in the first cohort. So that's the first trade. Now, the second trade is pretty similar, but it doesn't play out exactly the same way. What I mean by that is this downtrend of resistance that Bitcoin is under right now, it's very important. And when Bitcoin breaks it, Bitcoin is going to be breaking a lot of other levels of resistance at the same time. And if it breaks this, that's sitting around $8,500. If it breaks it with volume, we're probably starting a new longer term uptrend, and that might be a good position to put in a long entry right around here. So I just said 2 long positions. Why not just one of them? Why not just one trade and make this a lot simpler? Well, the reason is something that we discussed in the first cohort live stream this morning, guys. Whenever you're trading the market, you want to focus on one thing. That is your risk to reward ratio. What reward are you standing to make, and how much risk are you standing to take? If you guys remember like middle school fractions, then you will know that that ratio will increase if you reduce your risk or if you increase your reward. So what you can do to increase your statistical probability of being profitable is always reduce your risk without reducing your reward, or always expand your reward without reducing your risk. And one of the things you can do in these trades like this is not be in a trade on 1% on either side of the major level of resistance. What that means is that you have a trade up here and you sell and you close your position right before the resistance, and then if Bitcoin breaks out and is confirmed with volume, then you re-enter your position right up here. What that does is it means you miss out on 1 or 2% of profit, but you just cut out like half of the risk, because since you're selling right here, you're locking in gains that you already have, and you're not having to be in the market while Bitcoin is in this really turbulent decision point of whether or not it's actually going to break bullish above this resistance. You don't really know until Bitcoin's already done it sometimes. So if you just aren't in a trade for that 2% of the gain, then you're knocking out that 2%, which is the most risky, massively decreasing your risk and pretty much doing nothing to your reward. I'm serious, guys. Nothing's a silver bullet in technical analysis, but if you follow concepts like that, it's going to make profitability so much more likely for you. That and keeping your heart out of your head. Don't get emotional. So guys, those are the 2 trades. One trade is somewhere right above this level right here where Bitcoin is very clearly going to uptrend to this downtrend of resistance. An entry position somewhere around $8,000, maybe like $8,050 is what I'm going to call it actually. And an exit right up here around $8,325. And then following that, an entry position above $8,500. I'm going to call it $8,550 to wherever you want to put your price target. There's a lot of different places that you could put that. So guys, I hope you walked away from this video with a better understanding of what the market is doing, why the market's doing it, some of the technicals surrounding the movements that we're seeing, and some trades that you can make moving on into the next couple of days. Guys, I want to make one thing very clear at the ending of the video here though. Nothing I just said is financial advice. I'm not necessarily telling you to make those trades. I'm just showing you what I'm thinking. So if you make those trades, make sure you're using common sense, make sure you're using your own judgment and your own wisdom, and always remember to do your own thinking for yourself. A lot of people get caught up in the problem of hearing a YouTuber or an influencer say, hey, this is a trade that you can make, and they just go and blindly do it. I don't want you to do that. I want you to take what I just said and use it as the foundation for your own thought process so that you can go and make your own trade. I was talking about this with someone in the first cohort yesterday, and I was telling them it's not a good idea to make a trade based off of someone else's experience, because if the trade doesn't work, then it's much harder to figure out what went wrong because you didn't come up with the trade. If you come up with the trade based off of your own knowledge, then it's much easier to figure out what went wrong, and then it's also much easier to figure out how to make sure it doesn't happen again. Always make sure you're trading with your own thought process. Never make a trade just because someone said it. With that said, hopefully the trades that I outlined here can help you to build that foundation. And guys, there's one more thing that I want to mention before we wrap the video out, and it's this. We just entered a new decade. 10 years ago, I was in middle school. A lot of you guys might have been in high school. I know a lot of the people that watch this channel are under 30 years old, so a lot of you 10 years ago in 2010, you probably were in a much different position than you are now. Maybe you're in a better position, maybe you're in a worse position, but needless to say, the last 10 years have proven to all of us how much can happen in just 10 years. 10 years ago was 2 years after the financial crisis, and a lot of us were in very hard financial times. I know that I was, but what I want you to do is just look back on that last 10 years and see how much has changed. Now look back on the last 2 years, or maybe in 2019, see how much happened there. Because I know a lot has changed here in my life in the last 2 years, and I have a pretty big feeling that a lot has changed in your life in the last 2 years. And, you know, I've been talking to a lot of people lately. I talk to many more people now than I used to with the YouTube channel and everything. And there's a lot of people that they're stuck in the moment, and they're doing this whole 21st century idea of living in the moment, and they're not thinking about what happened 10 years ago, or even worse, they're not thinking about what's going to happen in 10 years from now. There's a lot of people that are by the way that we've been raised, they're short-sighted, and that's very dangerous because on one hand we have very short lives that are minuscule and terribly small compared to the history of humanity. But at the same time, they're very long, and there's a lot of things that we can do, and there's a lot of things that we can change in our lives, and there's a lot of profits that we can make, there's a lot of good that we can do, there's a lot of development that we can go through, there's a lot of people that we can help, there's a lot of things that we can change, so long as we make sure that we're thinking long term. So moving into 2020, I want you guys to not think about what am I doing today, this week, and how will today and this week affect this month. I want you to think about what am I doing this year and this decade that'll affect my entire life. Because if you kind of expand your thinking and embrace a concept that I call delayed gratification that a lot of research has been done on, I promise you it's going to make your life a lot better, and it's going to help pretty much everything that you do. So again, whenever I say this stuff, I want to make sure that I'm clear. I'm not trying to preach. I'm not trying to stand on a soapbox. Just something that I've learned, and it was a very big nugget of wisdom that has helped me significantly, and I hope it did the same for you. So make sure you're thinking long term, especially in cryptocurrency markets, because it's easy to get stuck in the minutia and the details and the day-to-day of cryptocurrency and forget where we're going in the long term and what the actual vision is for that. So guys, I do first want to thank each and every single one of you for watching as always, but I also want to thank each and every single one of you for supporting the channel for the last 2 years, and I look forward to the next 2, 5, 10, 20 years of getting to know you guys on an even more intimate level. But anyway, guys, like I said, that is going to wrap it out for today's video. But first, I do want to thank each and every single last one of you for watching as always, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.
Oh, I got a real good feeling.